Hello. I am a relatively new, realized man going his own way, and I've decided it's time for me to get in on the conversation. I haven't been going my own way fully for near as long as perhaps some have. I'm recently divorced, and I will say that, well, I'm separated and the papers are filed, so it's going to be about six. Well, I think she said she's going to file them today. Um, I've already seen a lawyer and she's got to sign them. So, but anyway, it's happening. And so once the papers are mailed, it'll be about, I think, 60 days, I think. So, but what helped me go through with the divorce was I looked up a book on the internet that I had purchased. It was called His Needs, Her Needs by Willard F. Harley, a Christian author, Christian psychologist. I am not Christian, nor was I, but the book was supposedly non-religious and pro-marriage. And my wife and I were going through the conversation of divorcing after 2 years of marriage, a little less than 2 years actually. And she had dropped a bomb on me that had made me insecure, dropped some knowledge on me that I was not aware of. She had portrayed herself as an extremely loyal partner, which is why I married her, in fact. Um, she wasn't the most attractive girl I'd ever been with. She was attractive, no doubt of that. But she wasn't the most attractive. And that was, but aside from that, she seemed very loyal, very in love with me, uh, emotionally needy, which turned out to be a annoyance at times, but nonetheless felt that she was loyal and loved me, and that was why I married her. Well, anyway, I guess early on in our relationship, she had cheated. After we had stated that we were exclusive. Now, granted, I will admit that I was not um, uh, without faults. Granted, I didn't actually go cheat, but I probably would have given the opportunity. So I can't claim that I was any better. But just thinking about in terms of morally, but just thinking about that, the fact that she portrayed herself as otherwise. I never really attempted to portray myself as a anything other than a sex hound, I guess you might call it. But I didn't cheat on her after we became exclusive, and I think I would have. I didn't pursue it like I would have if I intended to. But anyway, that's kind of something I've been thinking about today. Not necessarily the reason I'm making this video, but the divorce was relatively clean for me for the most part. It was difficult to get away. She wanted to stay together. And I was patient. I gave her time to accept the fact that I was done, and meaning I stayed around, physically in the house. And I didn't treat her poorly, but I was done. And I looked up a book called His Needs, Her Needs. I had read this book around this time, seeing if perhaps a different perspective or different techniques could solve some of our issues, but it turned out, I think, to be a complete, well, I'm not going to call it a complete fallacy, but I did a search on the internet, and the search I entered was His Needs, Her Needs is bullshit. And I came across men going their own way, and the forum, and I don't know how much the forum talked about it, but regardless, I started reading other men's stories, and I came across Tom Likas as well during this time, and those things, those resources really helped me determine within myself that I needed to get out of the marriage because I was no longer happy. And again, it wasn't solely based on the fact that it certainly wasn't based on the fact that she had cheated on me, because I wasn't even aware of that, and I was still under the impression that she had been loyal, and but I was just worn out from being in a marriage, living with her, because I basically rarely, if ever, saw my friends. I had little interaction with anyone other than her, other than going to work. Um, and maybe on the internet. I became very big into video gaming, and I hadn't been in about 10 years because I needed some social outlet. So I made some close friends from gaming, which I'm glad I did because they're still friends of mine actually, which says something right there. But regardless, we separated, and I've moved, and it's been a month since I've moved, and without necessarily intention, I ended up dating recently a exotic dancer, a stripper, uh, who I'd known prior to my marriage, and we had actually dated briefly 3 or 4 times in the past. And quite honestly, we had kept in contact even during the marriage. Um, Although again, I didn't ever cheat, but we kept in contact through email or text message, that type of thing. And she found out that I was no longer married, and we arranged a date. And this, for the most part, I would say is the most physically attractive woman I've ever dated. There's just something about her body that, wow, is really appealing to me. So we went out, and the emotions were strong instantly on her end, apparently. Again, she's women. uh, I'm not going to sit here and bash them, but I might occasionally say, women are just fucked up. Women are just fucked up. So, she was all over the place emotionally. Essentially, the second date, she literally said, "I love you." And when I say that, I'm not saying, "Oh, you're so funny, I love you." Not that type of love. Like, I love you, I want to marry you. Third date, she had mentioned marriage. And I'll admit, I emotionally, I got a little caught up in it. And um, it took a lot of coping to not allow that to overtake me to where I became, a complete slave. And I hadn't really been reading Men Going Their Own Way this time. I thought, well, maybe that's a little extreme. I still want to be loving, but it doesn't make sense if you love yourself to devote yourself like that to someone who doesn't love you. And that's all women. It's been pointed out. And a lot of my conversation here will be based on infield experience, if you will. Not as much. I have studied a lot on more or less how to interact with women. That perhaps is the interesting thing I can bring to the table. That's hasn't been brought to the table very often, at least that I've seen on YouTube, is that I have been involved or studied. I'm not going to say involved so much. I was never really a teacher or anything, but I studied the seduction community extensively for about 7 years, and I've practiced the concepts within it. And looking back at it now, it seems what I know now. Obviously, I don't know that I'm going to call it a waste of time because it got me to where I am, and I won't do that again. So it's not like, at least I got all that over with. I guess is the point. I got on it hard and it's over. I've come to I've come to the realization I'm happy to be as young as I am without children and child support and all these different things that could potentially have happened later on in life. I'm 30 years old. But anyway, I was part of the seduction community for years, and not necessarily, those of you that are not particularly familiar with the seduction community, otherwise known as the PUA community. I refer to it as the seduction community because I didn't memorize lines, and I suppose the difference would be micromanagement versus macromanagement. I suppose I was kind of more on the macromanagement side. I focused more on a way of being that was attractive rather than specific techniques and things of that nature. The idea was, have good energy, so to speak. Of course, there were specifics that I worked on as well. Learned how to have oral sex, form more sex on a woman better. Consider her orgasm as something very important. That type of thing. Learn how to, conversate, interesting conversation, for women. Again, a lot of this, it's all based on women. It's all how to get women to you. So, ultimately, your benefit will be sex and her showing you affection. But again, I must say Stardust is really a pioneer. Brilliant insights he has. I mean, it's really just blown me away. I really appreciate the videos he does and continues to do. But with the knowledge of the fact that women really don't love you, and this stripper that I dated, my God, we became intimate, and I got caught up in it, thinking, wow, her physically is so attractive that I would put up with, I was considering getting in a relationship. I would have gotten into an exclusive relationship with this girl. And because physically she was so attractive to me that I would have put up with, I suppose, what my soon-to-be ex-wife did. At least for a while, I thought. Maybe a little while longer. My ex-wife and I were together about 4 years total. 2 years of marriage. But anyway, we went out on about 3 dates, and I think this was probably the extreme. I can't remember the name of the law that Stardust mentions, but basically the fact that women view you as a utility. They don't love you for your person. They love you for what you're doing for them. And when what you're doing for them stops or becomes less than what somebody else can do better or more, then they leave. That's not love. That's using is what that is. That's utility using is what that is. So anyway,